Howdy, boys and girls, and welcome. It is week 13 of the college football season. For most teams, this is it. This is the final weekend of the regular season, which means we get to resort to the oldest joke we have on this show. And that is the Elmer Fudd edition of the Carla and Crappy Show, because it's Wivalwy week.
It is Wivalwy week.
Carla, that's not your apartment. Where are you guys?
This is not my apartment. This is also the annual Carla does a show from a hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are up visiting family with my family. We're actually north. So normally I'm south of you. Today I'm north of you. Where there's snow on the ground. It's still snowing outside. It's not snowing outside. It's flurrying. That doesn't count as snow.
This is like Nashville snow, but not Erie snow.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we got maybe an inch of snow today, and like nobody did anything about it. Like it's great. So we're up here for visiting family, and it's cold here, and we love it. And we heading back to Nashville next week in time to talk conference championship games. But it's greetings from a hotel room and hotel wine because
Hey, it's just that the Cobblestone Inn has a bar is okay.
That's a win. Yes.
Yeah,
that's a win in my book. Yes,
absolutely.
And they serve Southern Tier IPA, which my husband is drinking. So
can't go wrong with that either.
Good beer.
And you would be close. You would be really close to the mothership up there.
Yes.
We have some rivalry week. Three traditional rivalry games. And one that actually, if the two teams continue on the trajectory that they are on, that could become a rivalry. It could become a fun thing. But before we look ahead, as we do, let's look back. Carla, do you have just one thing from last weekend?
I think I want to continue on the baked goods trail, because true to form last week, after we talked about cupcakes and baked goods and all that fun stuff, I actually watched most of the games that we talked about. And gosh, that night game was entertaining as all heck. UCF is a good football team. And we thought Cincinnati was going to give them a game, but really UCF really kind of asserted themselves throughout that whole game. I watched most of that game. And it makes me wonder, what would it be like if UCF was in the playoff? It sure as heck would make things really interesting. We were talking tonight at my parents' house, and they're talking about like way too early bowl projections, and somebody, whatever bowl projections my mom was reading, so who knows where they came from, said that the bowl projection was Florida versus UCF, and man, that's a loss for the Gators. If that game happens, that would get real fast. Which would be fun, because I would like to see the in-state rivalry happen, but it would UCF is legit. I would like to see them as part of this conversation. I don't think they're one of the top 4 teams in the country, but are they worse than Are they worse than Notre Dame? Really?
Hard to say.
Make UCF and Notre Dame play a play-in game.
Hey, I would be all for that. It's interesting that we're taping this on Tuesday night, and the CFP rankings came out for this week, and I was watching that show, and a couple of the guys on ESPN made the point that you wonder if you get a situation like if you're and obviously a lot of stuff has to happen before that we get to this spot, but like if you're weighing UCF and say LSU, okay, and the challenge is this is the 4th team. They're going to play Alabama. Do you really want to see LSU play Alabama again? Or even if you don't necessarily think that UCF is on the same level as an LSU, do you want to give somebody a fresh crack at Alabama? Or it's just an interesting situation. And you wonder if that could play into a decision at some point if lots of stuff happens and that gets to be a part of the equation. So interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, but it also boils back to our whole thing about Notre Dame, and AJ brought this up last week, that Notre Dame comes down to butts and seats. Yes. And that's the one thing that we don't know about UCF, whether depending on where that game would be, and they've got a very loyal fan base. I mean, they proved that last weekend, but that game was at home. Yeah. And they brought the fans out. Would they travel? Would they, the whole, it's like and unfortunately, the committee takes that into consideration. And,
sure. We talked about that.
Yeah.
CFU is a large school. It
They
is
are.
not. We tend to think of it. If you see a directional school, you're thinking, Mid-American Conference size or maybe smaller. That is not the case. That is off the top of my head, 50,000 student university.
Yeah.
It is a large place, and so you have to figure. You don't know, as you said, how committed they are, but very large student body, probably, obviously, very large alumni base as well. I'd be curious to see how they react to something like that.
I'd like to give them a shot. I like that logic of would you rather see LSU play Alabama again, or do you want to give a team like UCF a chance? I teach at a mid-major, I work at a mid-major, right? I went to a low major. I love letting the little guys get a shot at the big guy, and so I would be all in favor of that. But with the way this playoff system is set up, it just doesn't work. But maybe someday we'll see a situation where we can get a team like this into the conversation legitimately and see what happens.
My one thing.
Yeah.
My one thing. I was feeling better. I was feeling better after the win in Michigan State, and then
last week.
And then, going to Maryland, and it's like, we're going to talk more about what happens with my team, and obviously because that's one of the rivalry games that we always include in this one. But it's just it was frustrating. There was some better stuff on the offensive side of the ball. Fairly consistent running game. Really good to see some running plays that involve the quarterback. That's going to be a really big deal this weekend. If Ohio State wants to A, kind of help control the pass rush, and B, contribute to an actual running game, to be able to have Haskins as a legitimate option. I mean, he doesn't have to do JT Barrett stuff, but if we're doing a read option and everyone knows he's just going to pitch the ball every time, that makes it a pretty easy play to defend. So it's not all awful, but mostly.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to the biggest game of the season. So, why not? Sure, we'll give up 50 to Maryland and have to go to overtime to win the football game. That'll be fine.
That's a recipe for a win this weekend.
There's all kinds of stuff going on here. Before we get to our stuff, we're going to let the AJ Kuftik give us a look at the not Pac-12 group of 5 after dark games that he will be following on Saturday. AJ, what you got?
Welcome, everybody. It's Wivalwy week. No, it's rivalry week. It's week 13. This is your group of 5 report. I'll sprinkle a Pac-12 game in there. Don't you worry about that. But let's get started because there's a lot to cover. Friday, 12 p.m., Houston, Memphis. This is for the AAC West. And the over-under is 74.5. So get a turkey sandwich. Just sit down and let the points take care of themselves. DeAndre King is incredible. Memphis has been playing really great offense this year. This should be fun as hell, and you should watch this game. Speaking of fun, 4:15, also on Friday, it's UCF USF. It's the war on I-4. A game that caused me to run around my mom's house last year screaming. I believe the phrase I screamed was, "I love this stupid game. This is the stupidest game, and I love it so." My mom thinks I'm weird. It's fine. Mackenzie Milton is incredible. These two teams put on an absolute classic last year. And listen, what did I say last week? USF needed a win to get it back on track before they went into UCF. And what did they do? Carla, oddly enough, Tampa has winter clothing. And so they went up to Philly and they beat Temple at home and convincingly. So they get a dub. They come back home. This game is in Tampa. So this should be a super, super fun game. This isn't for the AAC East. UCF has that locked up. But this should be super, super awesome. By the way, that Pac-12 game, Apple Cup, Washington and Washington State. This is Saturday night. I love you, Wazoo. I love you so much. I love the fact that you got game day this year and you've had this incredible season. But UW is a monkey on your back. And no matter how good you've been the last couple of years, UW has come in and knocked you out. I don't see that happen. I don't see that not happening again this year. Give me Washington. Until I see otherwise, until I see a little bit of consistency in Washington State teams beating teams with pretty solid defenses. And they've done it a couple times this year, but UW is just this like monkey on their back. It's like they see the purple and everybody just freezes up. So show me UW. Saturday, get ready, buckle in. This 2:30 to 4, this 2:30, 3 o'clock slate is jam-packed, cran-jammed, as some would say. Saturday, 2:30, Troy, App State. Remember how I said last week that, the winner of the, ULM game would, get the chance to face Troy, get wrecked by Troy or App State. Guess what? Troy and App State have to wreck each other before then. This is in Boone, a town known for moonshining, and it's listen, if you've ever been to Boone, you realize just how way out there in the mountains that it is. They don't call it Appalachian State for nothing. By the way, if you watched the Ohio State Michigan game and you needed dessert of Big Ten football, here's your game. The over-under on this game is 48, and both teams just have real strong defenses and love running the ball. So Big Ten football. So watch that game. If you don't want to watch Big Ten football, but you want to watch the Sun Belt, flip on over to Louisiana Lafayette versus ULM. This is the battle for Louisiana. The over-under is 70+. So if you want to watch the opposite of the Troy App State game, look, it's also on your television. So watch that. Additionally, at 3 p.m. on Saturday, we've got UAB Middle Tennessee. Now, follow me here. Both teams last week, we covered those games. We thought they had a shot against those teams. Turns out they did. Middle Tennessee was doing fairly well against Kentucky. The Kentucky pulled away late. Same thing with UAB against Texas A&M. This week, though, they meet with conference title implications. Now, this is where it gets funky. If Middle Tennessee wins and Florida International, who's playing Marshall, loses, Middle Tennessee State wins the CUSA East and faces, it's UAB in the title game. So they get, if they win and FIU loses, they get to play this game again next week. Neat. And it'll be a home game for UAB, I believe. So yeah, there's something to wet your whistle. So go Middle Tennessee State, go blue. I want to see that game. And I'm sorry to a friend of mine who is a huge Marshall fan and thinks the kids at Middle Tennessee are jerks. I don't know why. And finally, Saturday, 10:15 p.m. It's Mountain Time, baby. Utah State at Boise State. This is, by the way, this is for the Mountain West Mountain Division. So last week was for the Mountain West West Division. This is for the Mountain Week Mountain Division. But it's a night game on the blue turf. Sorry, Utah State. Give me Boise all day. Utah State has been awesome, but I've been burned this year by claiming a good team would go into the Treasure Valley and come out with a win at night. Not this time. Go Bongos. This should be a super fun game of rivalry weeks. Watch your favorite rivalry games, but don't forget these group of five games that are just going to pepper in. Ohio State and Michigan is like the turkey. It's the big thing. It's the big showstopper that everybody puts on the plate. And then you realize that it's kind of dry and boring. And so what you need some sauces, you need some sides, you need some gravy. And that's what group of five football is. Come on, man. You're not going to have a 20-17 Ohio State-Michigan game. I'm not telling you which way that game goes because I don't want to make Crappy sad. But I'm not going to tell you that it's a 20-17 game and there's 400 yards of rushing and good defense and it's cold. Not when there's 74-point ULM on. No, get that cranberry sauce in your life. Get that flavor. Get all those herbs and seasonings. So this has been your Group of 5 report. And I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you for championship week.
Thanks, AJ. Hope you guys are doing well. Hi, Abby. Hope you're doing your knees doing okay. Before we get to our games, we have one more crack at this one. Oh God, won't somebody please beat Notre Dame already? And I have. It's weird. I have high hopes for this one. This is their traditional season ender. They're at Southern Cal. They're favored by 10.5. Carla, is this the week?
Well, it's the only week we've got left, right? Like, if this is going to happen, I really want to have hope in this week, but I mean, they lost to USC or UCLA last week. That's a bad loss.
Yes,
that's a bad loss, and we got Clay Helton on the hot seat, and Notre Dame's going to win. I'm sorry. It pains me to say that, but I just don't. I really want this to be a game, but I just don't see it. Notre Dame's going to win. I was
when we did this segment last week, I was thinking and I mentioned this if you recall.
Yeah, you did.
That I was going to pick USC this week, and then they lost to UCLA, and it's like now they're not. It's not happening. So yeah, it's. Guys, enjoy watching Notre Dame in the college football playoff because it's happening. It's just nothing we can do. There are other more entertaining college football games on the schedule this weekend, and we're going to start just a little bit south of me, a little bit further south of where you are right now. Number 6, Oklahoma is at. I forgot to get number 13, West Virginia. Oklahoma is favored by 1.5 points, which is an odd line. But that says to me that Vegas is having as difficult a time as picking this game as I was. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this might actually be the most entertaining game of the weekend.
I think so.
So fix yourself another plate of leftovers. The Friday night slate of games is just absolutely ridiculous because the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be insane as well. So make sure when you're eating your turkey on Thursday and that you fix your plate of leftovers for Friday, that you're exercising your thumb because you're going to need it a lot on Friday night because there are two games happening simultaneously. Yes. That are going to be a lot of fun because both of them are going to feature absolutely zero defense. So it's going to be a whole lot of scoring points. I love this game so much because both of these defenses are just absolutely atrocious. They're terrible. And we watched the same team. And it's interesting because we've watched the same team against them in back-to-back weeks. So Oklahoma State played Oklahoma and they went and played West Virginia. And so we've seen the same offense against both of these defenses. Neither of them fared well at all. And the Oklahoma State offense is good. The problem with Oklahoma State is they can't stop anybody either. Right. And in most cases, they aren't quite able to outscore everybody. That's why they're sitting right about 500 this season. It's interesting because if this game was in Norman, I would feel really, really confident in an Oklahoma win here because they're playing with motivation. They want to stay in the playoff conversation. Mm-hmm. This game is in Morgantown at night on a Friday.
If y'all don't know, that's
exactly. Ask Pitt about what it was like to play the backyard brawl in Morgantown on a Friday night after Thanksgiving, and the atmosphere. And there's a full moon.
These are seriously important things to consider.
They are.
I'm being totally serious here.
It is. You have a quarterback here in Will Grier, who, like I said, all year has been playing with a chip on his shoulder. He got left out of the Davey O'Brien conversation, and you've got to believe. And I think that's got to play. And Kyler Murray is in the O'Brien conversation, and so I think Will Grier's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. He was angry about the loss last week. You could see that on his face when he walked out of the field. If you watch the end of that game, which is absolutely bonkers, if you miss the end of that game. this is a West Virginia win to me. These teams are pretty equal. Offensive yards are about the same. Defensive yards are about the same. Defensive yards given up are about the same. They're both terrible against the pass. They're okay against the run. Like, I mean, they're mirror images of each other. The splitting hairs between these two teams is Morgantown.
Mm-hmm.
That really was the differentiating factor for me. That atmosphere is just absolutely insane at night on a Friday night rivalry weekend. Mountaineers are going to find a way to win this game, and I can't really explain it other than the fact that I think it's because this game is in Morgantown.
You are 100% right, and I have the same thing written in my notes, and for the same reason. I mean, look, Oklahoma's has had a better run up, sorta, to this game. They've won 5 straight, while West Virginia has had both of its losses has come in the last month, 4 or 5 games. I say better-ish because Oklahoma still gave up an average of 35 points a game just in that stretch alone. So that's kind of silly to talk about their defense. As I was watching WVU and Oklahoma State last weekend, at some point the announcer said that the Mountaineers have a solid setup to win the Big 12 because they actually have a defense. And this was as they're on the way to giving up 45 points
right
to the Cowboys. So that was equally dumb. The thing there, as you said, there's not going to be any defense on display here. Both of these are excellent offenses. With such a narrow line on this game, it really says that Vegas is struggling with this one, and this is a situation where home field advantage is a true home field advantage.
Yeah.
And Morgantown is gonna be insane. They may burn couches before the game
to stay warm.
Well, yeah, that's a possibility too. But I look, the slight edge that Las Vegas has given the Sooners absolutely gets eaten up by the home field advantage in Morgantown.
Yeah.
And West Virginia wins this game. I am confident that is going to happen. Another interesting home field advantage. This is a more traditional rivalry. Number 16 Washington at number 8 Washington State Wazoo, perhaps one of the hottest teams in the country right now, is favored by just 3 points. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is another one. This one was tougher for me to think about than even the Big 12 matchup. Because I want to believe that Washington is ready for the upset in this game. Because, go back and listen or watch to the very first episode of this show this season, and you and I were both extremely high on Washington, as were all of the experts.
Did I had them in my Final Four? Did I do that?
I had them. Yeah, you had them in your Final Four. I had them in my Final Four. Right. Okay. So they came in with lofty expectations on this season, and they're sitting here with 3 losses. And they have the perfect opportunity here to play spoiler and mess everything up for Wazoo. Now, Wazoo really doesn't have a shot at the playoff, but they've got a legitimate shot if they can win this game and win the Pac-12 title game, because Lord knows the Pac-12 South is a hot mess. If Wazoo can win the Pac-12 North, they're probably going to win the title game, which means they're punching their ticket to the Rose Bowl. So that's what Wazoo is playing for in this game. And Washington State would love nothing more than knock off their rival. And they have won this game big the last 3 years. So they know that they can win this game. Gardner Minshew, who has just kind of blown onto the national spotlight this year for the first time, played his way into being a Davey O'Brien finalist. I mean, this is a kid that we didn't really know anything about at the beginning of the year. And now he is playing, he may be punching his ticket to New York City for a Heisman vote. It's a kid that we really didn't know anything about this year. And Washington's putting up a ton of yards. And here's the thing. Here's the reason why I think why I'm thinking Cougs in this game, other than the fact that they're playing at home on a Friday night, which, Pullman is not quite Morgantown, but a close second, maybe.
If there's a West Coast equivalent, Pullman might be it.
Yeah. So they might not burn couches, though. I don't know how extreme they get, but they have a lot of flags.
It's colder. It's colder there, so maybe they might need it.
So the only reason why, and this is the baffling thing about Washington this year, is the fact that they put up a boatload of yards. They're putting up just as many yards per game almost as Wazoo. They're not scoring points. And that's what's baffling about this Huskies team, is that they're only putting up 28 points per game. Whereas you have a Cougars team that's putting up somewhere between 40 and 43 a game. So that in and of itself tells me that the Cougs are going to win this at home. I just, and the loss at Cal is baffling for Washington. I just I had hopes for this game. If Washington entered this game at 9-2, and it was, they still had a shot at the Rose Bowl after this, then I can't talk myself into it. I want to, because I think Washington is capable of pulling this off, but I cannot find a reason to pick against the Cougs. So AJ, this is for your kids. Go Cougs.
There was as I was watching the CIP ranking show tonight, they did a quick snippet about Minshew and Mike Leach and how he ended up at Washington State, and his path has been kind of windy. I forget where he started. His freshman year, he transferred to junior college in his home state of Mississippi. Was last year was at East Carolina and had intended to go to Alabama. And Leach said, "Well, let's give him a call. I mean, what the hell? Because this is sort of how Leach operates."
Right.
And he said that the sales pitch was pretty brief. He's like, "Do you want to go be a backup quarterback, or do you want to lead the country in passing yards?" And I mean, I know how I would answer that question. And that got Gardner Minshew out of the South and away from Alabama and up to Pullman, where he has had a monster year. He's averaging 400 yards passing a game. Washington State's averaging, as you mentioned, almost 40 points a game. It's funny that we're talking about him at this point, because at the beginning of the season we were talking about Washington, right? And we're talking about Jake Browning. We're talking about a solid, balanced offense that was going to rip up everybody in the Pac-12. We were talking about the fact that the game with Washington and Stanford 2 weeks ago was going to be the big game of the Pac-12 North. And no, it's this one. Wow. And as you said, there's a definite home field advantage here. Washington can win this game, but you just look at sort of the arc of the season. I've referenced this before. Washington State is one of the hot teams in the country right now. And this is a night game. This is a traditional rivalry. Friday night, all of that stuff. This just feels like Wazoo's going to win, and that's how I'm picking this one. We are obligated to include this because it is an important game, no question. Auburn at #1 Alabama. Alabama's favored by 24.5 points. I'm not sure where the half point comes from, what that's about, but so Carla, I await your thorough analysis of this game.
If this game was in Jordan-Hare, I would give it some consideration as to maybe there's some wacky rivalry stuff happening. This is one of the best rivalries in college football. There's no doubt about it. And you want to see, and Auburn has the capability of knocking off a really, really good team. We've seen it out of them. The problem is they just have not been consistent all year. And it's in Tuscaloosa. I mean, Jordan-Hare for the Iron Bowl, or Bryant Denny. I'm sorry, Bryant Denny for the Iron Bowl. This is a Bama win. I started scratching my head last week as I was keeping an eye on the score, and you see that Citadel score, and you're going 14 at the half, and you're scratching your head a little bit, and maybe they were just taking a half off. I don't know. But they pulled themselves back together and just blew out the Citadel in the second half, which is what they're supposed to do. I don't think there's any reason to think that anything is amiss in Tuscaloosa. I think they just had a lackadaisical first half, because who wouldn't be hyped to play the Citadel? I mean, come on. Bama's going to win this game.
Yeah.
Are they going to cover? Maybe not. It's a rivalry game. Maybe take the points. Maybe just because. But no, Alabama's going to win this game.
The traditions of and ethics of journalism require me to state that this is a rivalry game, and as such, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
However, will something other than Alabama winning this game happen? No. Anything will not happen. Alabama won this game. Period. And we've gone a little bit out of chronological order, and I hope you forgive me, but I just wanted to leave this one for last because that's what it is. Just cause. Number 4 Michigan at number 10 Ohio State. It's going to be raining. The weather's going to suck. And what sucks even worse is Michigan is favored by 4 points. Carla, what do you think?
At the beginning of the year, I was really excited about this game. Because I mean, we all thought this was, and it still is. It's still for the Big Ten East.
Mm-hmm.
But we've talked about this the last 3 weeks on the show. Mm-hmm. And the way that Ohio State is just not trending. It's the same thing we just talked about in the other 2 games. They're just not trending well at the moment.
Yeah.
And even though I'm still not 100% convinced that Michigan's offense is completely right.
Mm-hmm.
I think Michigan wins this game. And going back to our dear God, please somebody beat Notre Dame already hypothesis here, I kind of want Michigan to win this game.
Okay.
And you have to hear me out on this
I'm good.
Because if Michigan wins this game and then they go and they beat Northwestern, which they should do, for the Big Ten title, you have to hope that maybe the committee thinks that Michigan is worthy of the 3. Which is kind of what AJ was talking about last week on the show. That if Michigan goes out, wins this game, wins the Big Ten title, that maybe the committee decides to rank Michigan at 3 and Notre Dame at 4, and then Notre Dame gets obliterated by Alabama. Yeah. I mean that's really kind of our hope to get Notre Dame out of the conversation. If that's what we're playing for here, but. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure if it really matters who plays Alabama and Clemson at this point. Right. I think they're on a collision course regardless. So I would like to see the best 4 teams in college football make the playoff this year. I don't think Notre Dame. I still don't think Notre Dame. I'm fairly certain, I'm speaking for both of us, that we don't think that Notre Dame is one of the best 4 teams in the country. But here we are. They're going to go undefeated. They're going to be in the playoff conversation. I think the best thing that can happen is for the Big Ten to have their strongest candidate. And unfortunately this year, even though I'm still not sold on that offense, I still don't think Shea Patterson is as good of a quarterback as what everybody thinks he is. Michigan has done what it has needed to do all season. Other than that Notre Dame game. And like you said, put those 2 teams on the same field again. And I think Michigan would win that game now.
Yes.
Because, Patterson's kind of gotten assimilated into that offense. I think Michigan wins this game. I think Ohio State is able to keep it close, but just based on what I've seen out of Ohio State the last 3 weeks, I think Ohio State keeps it close because they're playing at home. It's the rivalry game. It's the game. This is what you play for all year. I think they can keep it close and keep it interesting, but I think the Jimmy Harbaughs find a way to win this game, and it really kills me to say that. I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. And look, I mean, in the long run, I going to the Rose Bowl would not be a bad thing.
That's true.
You can't argue that's ever a raw deal. And look, and I knew this season would come, although I didn't really think it was this year, especially not for the first couple of weeks when Ryan Day's Buckeyes were crushing everybody, and Jamie Harbaugh didn't really look like he had any idea how to work the new toy that he had at quarterback.
Right.
But what has happened in the interim? If you step back and look at this objectively, you have to think, as you just stated, this is the first time in many, many, many years that you've got to think that Michigan is going to win this game. there have been seasons here or there where you think, okay, it's going to be close. They got a realistic shot. As I look at this is the first time in a long time where if I look at this objectively, I think Michigan's got to be the favorite here. That is what we've talked about this before. My college football brain is like this, okay, and the rational portion of my college football brain is like this. So that all that stuff was my rational college football brain. The rest of my college football brain watched the CFP ranking show, as I mentioned before earlier tonight, and got irritated. It was apparently a foregone conclusion among the ESPN guys that Michigan was winning this game on Saturday. It's an unusual position for an Ohio State fan to be in recent history. Hearing that his team is a solid underdog at home, it's jarring. It sort of makes you angry. And I'm betting that's what's going on at the Whitney Hayes Center as well. For the first time in the career of any of the players who are in that building right now, they're being told they don't have a shot of winning the rivalry game. And in many cases, you think about Mike Weber, who's from Detroit, who decommitted from Michigan to come play in Columbus. That's why he's there. I'm betting that's not going over well. And for whatever faults Urban Meyer has, and for whatever problems he has this year or has caused this year, whatever. He's always been the guy to motivate a college football team. He does that better than nearly anybody in the business. So this might be the last year I can say this. But listen carefully. I'm saying this because I believe it. I'm not saying this because I have to do this on the show. I'm not doing this because I'm saving face. I think Ohio State's going to win this game on Saturday. I'm not sure that that's the best situation for Ohio State to be in. I know Ohio State is not one of the best 4 teams in the country. I think playing against Alabama or Clemson would be an ugly, ugly thing either way for my Buckeyes. But whatever happens, happens. I see a win on Saturday. And you can take that to the bank.
And I know a bunch of people in Norman, Oklahoma who are hoping that you were right.
No question. I could be the most popular guy in the country this year. This weekend, boys and girls, you can watch the Carla and Crappy Show for the dwindling duration of the college football season by searching Carla and Crappy on YouTube or Facebook. If you prefer to have Carla and Crappy inside your head, you can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn, as well as your favorite social channels. If you like the show, please feel free to rate and review. And if you don't mind your own damn business, Carla, any final thoughts?
My Nittany Lions play your Maryland Terrapins this weekend.
My Maryland Terrapins? They have a decent tailback. You might want to try to tackle him. That would be my only advice.
It's going to be interesting. So here's hoping that Penn State fares a little better against Maryland than Ohio State did, because that was a little terrifying knowing that you had them next week. So yeah, and enjoy the turkey, people. This is the best weekend. This is the best weekend of the college football year. I think you got all the good rivalry games. You get an excuse to load up on carbs and grab a beer and sit in front of your TV.
Games on Friday.
Yep.
Games on Saturday.
Yep. It's a great weekend. So enjoy it.
This is a great weekend. Guys, take Carla's advice. Overload on food, lie down on the couch, and get your clickers out and get ready to watch some of this stuff, because there's good stuff all weekend long.
Yes, there is.
Enjoy the Wivalwy games, and we will be back here next week to talk about the much easier to pronounce championship games that will be coming up next weekend. Carla, thank you very much.
Yep, thanks as always. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you guys. Happy Thanksgiving to you. We will talk to you next week. Thank you.